Hey guys, it's Daniel with Boss C351's Productions. Today is another follow-up video to our 2013 through 2014 Ford F-150 Ecoboost build-up videos. Now, if you watch the channel, we've already had one follow-up video before, and it was because of a failed turbocharger on the driver's side of the engine. Well, this follow-up video has to do with that. Unfortunately, what has happened is that when the customer purchased the truck did not come with the tuner that was used on the truck, but the tune was left in the truck and was still being used when he purchased it. Now, a little backstory, this truck, when he purchased it, had several issues that he didn't know about. It had some eBay/Amazon turbochargers on it. It had two bad O2 sensors on it. Had the wrong blow-off valve on it that was bleeding air where you were driving the truck pretty much the whole time. If you accelerated, it would blow air. It had several other issues. It was basically a hack job. Somebody took the engine apart at one time, put everything back together, missing the dowel pin for one of the heads. It had RTV smeared all over everything. But the main thing that we're going to cover on this video is basically when you purchase a vehicle, you need to make sure that if it had a tune or has a tune, that you get the tuner with it. If it does not have the tuner and has a tune on that vehicle, my suggestion to you is to have the seller take it to the dealership and have them put the factory software back, or the factory tune back in the truck or the vehicle. Reason being is because you don't know what's in that tune. And that is what I've basically been dealing with here in the last few months with this guy's truck. We didn't have any clue what was in the tune. Whenever I took on the truck and told him I would rebuild the engine completely for the truck, I told him, you've got to take the truck to the dealership and have the tune set back to factory. Everything needs to be set back to factory. Well, he says he took it to a Ford dealership, and the Ford dealership couldn't do anything because the tune had the computer locked down. Now, most of these tunes, when the tuner puts it in or designs the tune is scrambled where someone else can't go in and mess with it. It's set to that tuner's software. Also, when the tune is uploaded to the truck, it's scrambled. So, if you don't have the tuner, you can't get the tune out of the vehicle. And this is what we were facing. So I went and I rebuilt the engine, top to bottom, front to back. Brand new Ford's pistons. This truck, it was running pretty good when I first started driving it in the break-in period. Got the truck back to the customer. Everything seemed fine. Found a small coolant leak at the small line that goes to the thermostat housing. It was a bad clamp that I put back on there I shouldn't have. But internally on that hose, the hose was damaged. So he replaced the clamp. I got the truck back because coolant was disappearing out of the coolant bottle. I replaced the clamp after cutting an inch off the hose because I found it was damaged. Well, I'd gotten the truck back because he said it was losing a lot of coolant. And gradually over time, it has lost more and more coolant. So the more he drove it, the more coolant started losing. Well, this is where I looked at it, saw he had antifreeze blowing out of his weep hole in his intercooler. Took all the turbo tubes off, found antifreeze in the turbocharger. Thought, well, hey, turbocharger's gone out. It's blown the seal. So back and forth, he paid me for everything except for the turbocharger, and I ended up eating the turbocharger. So got it back to him. I drove it out, halfway down to his house. It was a good couple of 100 miles, no problem. He has the truck back, and now it's starting to, really drink more and more and more coolant. it as time goes by. And this just is not right. I performed all kinds of tests on this engine, on this truck. I run the pressure up on the cooling system up to 20 psi, starting it out at 16, which was the cap. 16 psi held for more than 24 hours. My cooling system tester broke, so I bought a new one. This time I ran it up to 20 psi, and it held, other than a small leak in the one of the heater core hoses in the plastic, which had a defect in it. But otherwise, it held. It dropped 1.5 or 1.6 psi over a day. So I also run an exhaust gas analyzer test to check for exhaust in the cooling system. No exhaust in the cooling system. Started doing some more checking. He had scoped the engine with his scope, and there was some discoloration on one of the pistons, which looked like coolant discoloration. So he sent me the truck back. I got the truck. I went in to scope the cylinders, and what I'm putting on the screen now is what I found. If you look at this picture, you can clearly see the piston, the side of the piston is melted. And it's like this in several places on the piston. What this tells me is that when he got the truck back with the bad tune, he kept driving the truck. He accelerated real hard with the truck, apparently several times. He told me he pulled a trailer with fertilizer on it. He said 50 miles round trip. But one key thing that he did that probably did this thing in is he went and had it run on a dynamometer. I've got video and pictures of one run. I don't know how many runs they made on it, but they ran it up to red line on the runs that I saw, which most likely did this truck in, did the engine in. Directly after that is when he started finding coolant blowing out of the intercooler weep hole, which, it could have been caused by the failure of the turbo seals. We also found out that the tune, the way it was programmed, was overrunning the turbochargers. Overrunning means it was boosting the engine more than what the factory tune would have been set at. So it was overrunning them. It was running them faster than they were supposed to be running. Like I said, here's multiple pictures of the damage of the piston. And what it's called, when you burn the top of the piston, it's called crown burning. And what happens is the edges of the piston, or wherever there's a sharp place on the piston, starts to heat. And when it starts to heat and you start putting more pressure to it from the turbocharger, then it turns into a blowtorch, and it has literally melted the side of the piston in this cylinder. If we would not have caught it before and got the tune fixed, which I was able to go in, get the as-built from Ford, go into the tuning software, convert it over, and then re-upload it to the truck, I got him a basic stock Ford tune that would get him by until he made it to the Ford house to go ahead and get the latest, greatest Ford programming. But of course, by that time, it was too late. What's happened since I ate the turbocharger, about $600, and I discovered this, I have declined to work on the engine any further for the simple fact, before I ever started on the engine, I informed him that the tune, the way it is, unknown, could damage the engine, and that is what it's done. So when you have a tune that's off, air-fuel mixture is going to be wrong. Octane requirements is going to be wrong. It probably had a 93 octane tune, and he was running 87 octane in it. The timing was probably turned way up to try to get more power out. Your air-fuel ratio is probably going to be wrong because the turbocharger is not the same ones that were on the truck before, which we have no idea. When he bought the truck, they were rushing to throw some eBay, Amazon turbos on there. We don't know what was on there before. Plus things like boost, your factory boost setting. It was not a factory, I believe it was 14 PSI. His was set hitting 17 and higher. So we know it was overrunning the turbo. We know it was a bad tune. Ultimately it was the customer's problem and the customer's fault because he did not get the tune taken out and back to the factory programming. And like I said, I've had to decline working on the truck anymore. I hate doing that, but it's not my fault. It has nothing to do with the engine build. It has to do with computer engine control management that failed him because of, what he purchased without a tuner. I'm sorry, but you've got to do your due diligence. Even if you don't know, you've got to do your due diligence. And I've talked this over with my brother who does tunes, and I'm not gonna take responsibility for something. One was in existence before I rebuilt the engine, and two, I have nothing to do with. So this is just a follow-up, like I said. Basically a warning to all you guys out there buying these trucks. If you think it has one or even feel like it's got a tune in it and you don't have the tuner and you buy the truck, you need to take it to Ford house, get them to make sure they can update it to the latest, greatest tune, or at least make sure they can hook up to it and tell you there's no tune on it. Otherwise, you're taking a big chance because these were not just regular pistons. These were Ford's pistons, expensive Ford's pistons in this engine. So it took a lot of damage, a lot of heat to melt these things down. So far it's just one, but I've looked at others through the scope and they look like they've been overheated. The heads look like they've been overheated. There's splotches of aluminum on the bottom side of the heads in the exhaust combustion area. There's just things that don't look right in those. But I cannot for sure absolutely say the blocks weren't, the heads weren't, until it's disassembled. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be involved with that. I did what I was supposed to do, and I'm going to send it down the road. He can take it to someone else and let them deal with it. But unfortunately, my hands are tied, and also, my hands are clean of what's happened. If you watch my video, my multi-video series, everything was done that was supposed to be done. Everything was mic'd, everything was checked, measurements were made, all torques were observed, all torque sequences were observed. That engine was as good as it was going to be when it was installed and left my possession. So, guys, just be careful, because this can happen to you. It can happen easily. It may have already happened. You just don't know. This is Daniel with Boss C 351's Productions. Thank you for watching my video. Good luck out there.